Hey guys, this is Kate from What Kate Ate. Today we're going to be talking all about probiotics and prebiotics, the difference between the two of them, the benefits of the two, and you guys had a lot of questions for me on Instagram, so I wrote all of them down into a nice little note on my phone to have with me to make sure I'm answering all of your questions about these two amazing things. Before I get to your questions, what I want to talk about first is what exactly are probiotics? They're so freaking popular right now, which is awesome. Hashtag gut health. But I don't think a lot of people really know exactly what they are and why they're beneficial to our overall health and especially our gut health. So let's talk about what probiotics actually are. Probiotics are healthy bacteria that line our intestinal tract. So they're in our large intestine, our small intestine, and they're extremely important for an overall healthy being. Plain and simple. So to answer all of your questions, the first one is, how do you find the best kinds of probiotics? This is a really great question. A lot of people think that there's a specific number of strains that there must be. A lot of people will say that there needs to be 5 different strains of bacteria. There needs to be billions of colony-forming units. If you look at a probiotic little container, it'll say CFUs. That stands for colony-forming units. And honestly, there's so many different strains, there's so many different types, there's so many different things that you could look at that I like to keep it simple and find soil-based organisms, which are a type of probiotic, or I like spore-forming probiotics. These two different types of probiotics are the most effective at colonizing in the gut, meaning they colonize, they reproduce, they repopulate the gut with healthy bacteria, and they live there and they make a home there. We're not just reseeding the intestinal tract continually with probiotics over and over and over again and having to do that constantly. But with these soil-based organisms and spore-based probiotics, we're really changing the environment of the gut. So my 2 favorite types of probiotics are Primal Defense by Garden of Life, and a new one that I just started using that is absolutely amazing. I'm using it with a lot of clients. I'm using it with myself. It's called Megaspore Biotic. So you can check those 2 out. My therapist is calling me. I'm going to decline that. Let's move forward. Should you still take a probiotic even if you're eating probiotic-rich foods? This is a wonderful question, and I get this all the time. So probiotic-rich foods are fermented foods, things like kimchi, sauerkraut, kombucha. All of these foods have naturally occurring massive amounts of strains of probiotics in them. And so to answer this question, I would say it just totally depends on you. I take a probiotic when I remember to, if I'm being totally honest. But I also eat a lot of probiotic-rich foods. I've had my gut health tested multiple times with stool tests, and I know that I have a healthy microbiome. If you are someone that you know your microbiome is unhealthy, there's some imbalance of flora, and you're needing some more probiotics, feel free to take a probiotic and consume probiotic-rich foods. I think it's totally okay to do both. It definitely depends on the individual. There's definitely kind of a threshold where you can be taking too many probiotics. And usually when I see this, it's more in a sense of like when I have a client and we're elevating probiotics to an extent where we're trying to get rid of bad bacteria. So there's this balance of flora in the gut. And if you're taking too many probiotics too quickly, what can end up happening is you can have die-off symptoms. So as the healthy guys overpopulate the bad guys, what can end up happening is as these bad bacteria die off, we can have die-off symptoms. These bacteria can let out different toxins as they're dying that they've been holding on to, and it can make us kind of sick. This is why some people get like crazy stomach aches and diarrhea when they first start taking probiotics or when they first start drinking kombucha, because their gut is just not used to the amount of probiotics that are in those foods. So if you're already eating probiotic-rich foods and you want to take another probiotic, just be sure that if you do notice these die-off symptoms, that you back off a little bit, work with someone to help with any of the different things you might be experiencing. And to answer this question, it depends. Next question. What are the benefits of making fermented foods at home? Honestly, I think the biggest benefits is that you learn how to ferment your own foods. It's always fun to have a little science experiment going on at home. And number two, you don't have to pay for super expensive kombucha and sauerkraut and all that crazy shit. You can just make it in your own house. Your family can eat it. And you're getting so many other different strains of bacteria. So when you look at a probiotic capsule, it'll tell you the specific strains of bacteria that you're getting. But when you're drinking a kombucha that you made at home or you're eating sauerkraut that you made at home, there's so many different spores of healthy bacteria and yeast and fungi and things that are in the air that SCOBY or whatever you're using to ferment your foods is going to pull in and break down and pull into the food that you're consuming, which sounds kind of scary, but that's literally, there's probiotics and bacteria everywhere, healthy bacteria all over the place. So it's kind of, you can't really quantify the amount of probiotics that you're getting in your homemade fermented foods. So you're getting an array of strains, which is really good because we don't always want to be taking the same probiotics all the time. And that brings me to another point. This wasn't a question, but it's a really good point to make, is that you should probably rotate the probiotic that you're taking every 3 to 6 months. And the purpose of that is so that you're getting lots of different types of beneficial strains of bacteria in your gut. The more diverse, the more robust your microbiome and your probiotics, the healthier your gut will be. On to the next question. My favorite kinds of probiotics, I answered that already, the Megaspore Biotic and the soil-based organisms, which are the Primal Defense from Garden of Life. The last question that I have here, is there a specific time of day that you should take probiotics? Not necessarily. I think it's different for everyone. And again, this is just kind of my opinion. I think everyone is going to have different opinions on when to take probiotics. Should it be on an empty stomach? Should it be on a full stomach? Should it be with food? Should it be in the morning? Should it be at night? And it's really hard to say, generally speaking, what would be most effective. But if you're taking them, that is amazing. And what I usually tell people is to take them with food, because then you have food to kind of be that buffer between the digestive process. So as we're eating food, the brain is signaling to all of our organs to properly create digestive enzymes, hydrochloric acid, to properly break down and assimilate all of our nutrients. And so I always like to take my probiotic with my food so that I'm making sure that it is in an optimal environment to be broken down and assimilated and taken to the different parts of my digestive system. I don't think that it's beneficial to take probiotics on an empty stomach, even though some people might say that it is. And there's not really a time that is most beneficial. I usually take mine when it's most convenient for me. So if I'm in a phase where I'm taking my probiotic every day, it's usually in the morning with my breakfast. But yeah, those are all the questions I had. So we're going to move on to prebiotics. So probiotics, P-R-O, that's what we just talked about. And now what we're talking about is prebiotics, P-R-E-biotics. So prebiotics are a indigestible dietary fiber, and they are actually fibers that, since we can't digest them, they are excreted as waste sometimes. But before they're excreted as waste, what happens is they go through our mouth, through the esophagus, into the stomach. They get churned and turned and broken down chemically. They move on into the small intestine. All of our food is absorbed. And then things go on into the colon. And the colon is where most of our microbiome is, where our probiotics live, our healthy bacteria lives. And these prebiotic, indigestible fibers hang out in there. And the bacteria in our large intestine and our probiotics living in our gut feed off of these indigestible fibers. So you can kind of think of prebiotics as the food for probiotics and healthy bacteria in your gut. So it's one thing to take a probiotic. You know that you're taking it. But it's also super important that we keep those little guys happy, because if we don't keep them happy and the environment in our gut sucks and they're like, well, fuck, there's no food for me to eat in here, peace, I'm out, they're going to dip out. We need to make sure that we're feeding these amazing, healthy probiotics that are in our gut to make sure that we continue to have a healthy gut microbiome. So examples of prebiotic-rich foods, I wrote a little list here because I have like 3 that always commonly come to my mind, and that's potato starch, and jicama root and raw garlic. Those always come to my mind, but I know there's so many more. So I wrote a little list here to tell you guys. Jicama, underripe bananas. So we're talking like green and yellow bananas, bananas with no spots on them. Raw chicory root. You can get this in a lot of herbal coffees. I personally love Mellow Rooster. It's my current fave. They have raw chicory root in there. You can roast it as a coffee in a French press. Raw garlic, I already mentioned. Raw or cooked onions is also a really great source. Raw asparagus, gross, who wants to eat that, but it's still a source of, of prebiotics. And then potato starch. If you guys go to the grocery store, Bob's Red Mill actually has like a whole freaking pack of potato starch. And if you're wanting to up your intake of prebiotics along with your probiotics, you can just put a little bit of that potato starch into whatever you want. You can even just mix it into some water and chug it back if that works best for you. But that answers all the questions here that I had from probiotics and prebiotics. I hope this was helpful for you guys. If you have any questions at all, feel free to reach out to me, drop me a message, send me a DM on Instagram, send me an email, write me a comment on my YouTube. I feel like people are gonna end up watching this video from all over the place. So wherever you're watching, send me a comment, ask me questions. I would love to help you. And I will see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.